Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om 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 Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. We're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. We're on Text 5. It's February 20th, 2021. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamutirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata seveya bhagavat yutamashloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. Text 5, Chapter 9, Canto 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sa Adideva Jagatam Para Guru Svadishnyam Astaya Sisrikshaya Aikshata Tam Na Adyagachat Drisham Atra Samatam Prapancha Nirmana Vidhi Yaya Bhavet.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So we'll read now one line at a time. Sa Adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru. Sa Adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru. Swadishnyamastaya Sisrikshayakshata. Swadishnyamastaya Sisrikshayakshata. Tam Nadya Gacha Drisham Atra Samatam. Drisham Atra Samatam. Prapancha Nirmana Vidhir Yaya Bhavet. Prapancha Nirmana Vidhir Yaya Bhavet. Sa Adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru. Sa Adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru. Svadishnyamastaya Sisrikshayakshata. Svadishnyamastaya Sisrikshayakshata. Tam Nadya Gacha Drisham Atra Samatam. Tam Nadya Gacha Drisham Atra Samatam. Prapancha Nirmana Vidhir Yaya Bhavet. Prapancha Nirmana Vidhir Yaya Bhavet. Sa Adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru. Sa Adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru. Svadishnyamastaya Sisrikshayakshata. Svadishnyamastaya Sisrikshayakshata. Tam Nadya Gacha Drisham Atra Samatam. Tam Nadya Gacha Drisham Atra Samatam. Prapancha Nirmana Vidhir Yaya Bhavet. Prapancha Nirmana Vidhir Yaya Bhavet. Would anyone online like to recite the verse?
Sa Adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Sa Adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Svadhisnyamastaya shikshaya kshatam.
Swadhishnamastaya sisrikshayakshata.
Tam nadya gachadisham atmasamatam.
Tam natya gachadvisham atra samatam.
Apansha nirmana viduyaya bhavet.
Prapancha nirmana vidiryaya bhavet.
Sadi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Sadi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Svadhishnayam Ashtaya Shikshaya Yakshata.
Swadhishnamastaya sisrikshayakshata.
Tam Nadya Gacha Dirsham Matra Samatam.
Tam nadikacha dvishamatra samatam.
Prapancha Nirmana Yidir Yaya Bhavet.
Prapancha nirmana vidiryaya bhavet.
Sadi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Sadi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Svadhishnamastya shikshaya sakshatam.
Swadhishnamastaya sisrikshayakshata.
Tam nadya gacha drishamatra samatam.
Najagacha dvishamatra samatam.
Prapancha nirmana vidhiryaya bhavet.
Prapancha nirmana vidiryaya bhavet.
Sadi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Sadi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Svadhishnayamastaya Shishriksayaiksata.
Swadhishnamastaya sisrikshayakshata.
Ram Nadya Gachadrishamatra Samatam.
Tam nadigacha dvishamatra samatam.
Prapancha Nirmana Vidhiryaya Bhavet.
Prapancha nirmana vidiryaya bhavet.
Saradi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Sadi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru.
Sadhisnyamastaya Sirvrikshaksata.
Swadhishnamastaya sisrikshayakshata.
Tam nad Hagajachadishram atas samatam.
Tam najigachadvisham atra samatam.
Prapancha nirmaya vidiryaya bhavet.
Prapancha nirmana vidiryaya bhavet. Sa,
Sa,
he, Adideva,
Adideva,
the first demigod,
the first demigod,
Jagatam,
Jagatam,
of the universe,
of the
of the universe.
Para,
Para,
supreme,
supreme,
Guru,
Guru,
spiritual master,
spiritual
Spiritual
master,
master.
Svadhishnam,
Svarishyam,
his lotus seat,
his lotus seat,
Astaya,
Astaya,
to find the source of it,
to find the source of it,
Sisrikshaya,
Shrikshaya,
for the matter of creating the universal affairs,
for the matter of creating the universal affairs.
Aikshata,
Aikshata,
began to think,
Tam,
in that
in
matter,
that matter,
na,
Na,
could not,
could not,
adhigachat,
Adigachat,
understand,
understand,
drisham,
Drisham,
the direction,
Atra,
therein,
Samatam,
just the proper way, prapancha,
Prapancha.
material,
Material.
nirmana,
Nirmana,
construction,
construction,
vidhi,
Vidhi,
process,
process,
yaya,
Yaya,
as much as,
Bhavet,
bhavet, should be.
should be.
Translation. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat, and while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This verse is the prelude for explaining the transcendental nature of the form and the abode of the Lord. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it has already been said that the supreme absolute truth exists in his own abode without any touch of the diluted energy. Therefore, the kingdom of God is not a myth, but factually a different and transcendental sphere of planets known as the Vaikunthas. This will also be explained in this chapter. Such knowledge of the spiritual sky, far above this material sky and its paraphernalia, can be known only by dint of devotional service or bhakti yoga. The power of creation by Lord Brahma was also achieved by bhakti yoga. Brahmaji was bewildered in the matter of creation, and he could not even trace out the source of his own existence. But all this knowledge was fully achieved by him through the medium of bhakti yoga. By bhakti yoga, one can know the Lord, and by knowing the Lord as the Supreme, one is able to know everything else. One who knows the Supreme knows everything else. That is the version of all Vedas. Even the first spiritual master of the universe was enlightened by the grace of the Lord. So who else can attain perfect knowledge of everything without the mercy of the Lord? If anyone desires to seek perfect knowledge of everything, he must seek the mercy of the Lord, and there is no other means. To seek knowledge on the strength of one's personal attempt is a sheer waste of time. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Darati Svapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatayubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2 Chapter 9 Text 5. Saadi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru Svadish Namastaya Sisrik Shai Aikshata Tam Nadigacha Drishamatra Samatam Prapancha Nirmana Vidhir Yaya Bhavet. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat. And while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. A common saying is, work like everything depends on us, and pray like everything depends on Krishna. We see that integration of principles come alive here, that Lord Brahma, he's applying his intelligence, giving fully, and well, it's described in Bhagavad Gita that there are 5 factors as the cause of all action. There's the endeavor itself, there's the kshetra, or the place, the body, And there's the spirit soul, who in that verse is called the doer. And there's the senses. And then the ultimate factor is the super soul. Once one commits, then providence moves. It's a saying by someone named Hutchins. So that providence or super soul is the ultimate factor, the ultimate principle. But that doesn't mean that we pretend that we're powerless and we develop a sort of victim-y relationship with God. Well, it's all up to you. What could I do? No, we give our full, we work like everything depends on us giving fully, while praying like everything depends on Krishna. So Lord Brahma, he's a key personality in this epic Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahma, now here he's described as he's the first spiritual master in our parampara. We have like our current link to the parampara, Srila Prabhupada, and then his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati. And before him, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. Before him, this Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the six Goswamis, Lord Chaitanya himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nayanya, incarnation is not necessarily the right term. Incarnation kind of indicates like carnate in a material body, but and the avatar of Radha Krishna combined in one form, Lord Chaitanya. So the head, the chief of our sampradaya is Brahma. Okay. And so sometimes we hear about Brahma in his capacity as the pure devotee acharya, chief of our sampradaya. And sometimes we hear about Brahma in his capacity as a demigod, Muyantiyat Surya, who sometimes apparently gets bewildered. Similar to like Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes we hear about Arjuna as like pure devotee, surrendered to Krishna. And sometimes, like especially in the first chapter and beginning of second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we hear about Arjuna as kind of like a conditioned soul representing us. Similarly with Maharaj Parikshit, the prime hearer of Srimad Bhagavatam. He's a Raj Rishi, pure devotee king. And sometimes we hear, oh, he sort of got bewildered when he put a snake, but it was all transcendental pastime. He put a snake on the sage, Samika Rishi, but it was all transcendental pastime. So Brahma, he wants to do his service. His service is managing, creating, engineering the entire universe. So that might not be our particular service at this time, but we all have a service. Yes, we're all managing something. Trying to figure out where our car keys are, balancing the checkbook or whatever it is. So Brahma's, he's got big brain power. And he on his own, he's humble. He sees on his own, he doesn't have the realization, doesn't have the revelation how to do a service. So then he's going inward so he can go upward, going inward. And we hear as this chapter goes on, it's a fascinating description of the Vaikuntha planets. And then it expands from there with Sri Krishna appearing to Brahma and giving him the 4 seed verses. Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. And towards the end of this chapter, we hear from Krishna speaking to Brahma the 4 seed verses, starting with Aham Evasam Eva Agre. And so as Gajendra Prabhu nicely pointed out yesterday, so Brahma is doing austerity, going within himself, and tapa, we're going to hear that in the next verse. He heard the words tapa, austerity. And then Krishna, Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, the Lord of Vaikuntha, Vaikuntanath, is revealing himself, revealing the Vaikuntha planets in reciprocation with Brahma's austerity, in reciprocation. So, we're in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. There's the verse where Krishna, he describes a little bit about the spiritual world. And not that basai to suya napavaka nasanshika yagadfana nivartate tadama paramam mama. Krishna says there's no need for sun or moon or electricity. He says no need. Prabhupada translates it as no need for electricity there, because everything is chintamani atoms. Everything is self-effulgent. And then Prabhupada says in the purport, Prabhupada describes, Prabhupada says, he says, one should be captivated by this information. Like you can hear Prabhupada's compassionate urgency. One should be captivated to make that our list. Yes, I want to go to Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha translates, Kunta is anxiety. Vaikuntha is place without anxiety. It is said, Prabhupada says in the 5th canto of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the more, yes, let's see, so that would be 15.6, the one where Krishna, I'm pretty sure 15.6, where Krishna describes no need for sun, moon, or electricity. The verse starts, Nat tad basaya te suryo. That's the first line. Nat tad basaya te suryo. And so Prabhupada says one should be captivated by this information. Prabhupada writes, the more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more one is entrapped by material miseries. Because this is a fundamental truth. It's a truth we want to hide from. It's a truth we want to avoid. Fundamental, foundational means you can't get away from it. Material society is basically dedicated to run material society or ourselves in material consciousness, basically trying to run from that truth. The more I'm addicted to any sort of material pleasure, gross or subtle material pleasure can be enjoying being appreciated or adored or special or distinctive or famous within a particular community. The more I'm addicted to material pleasures, the more I'm entrapped by material miseries. We just won't be able to run away from that. So Prabhupada, he's saying, so one should be captivated about the descriptions of Vaikuntha, the descriptions of Krishna's abode, Chintamani Prakarasat Masukalpa Vriksha Laksha Viteshu Surabir Abhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambrahma Saivyamanam Govindamadi Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. Lord Brahma, he is praying, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires and abodes built of spiritual gems. Surrounded by millions of purpose trees and served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. So many descriptions of Vaikuntha, Prabhupada, urging us to get that that material life, addiction to material pleasures, the more we're addicted to material so-called pleasures, the more we're entrapped by material miseries. So it's intrinsically a temporary place full of miseries. So Prabhupada, Shukadeva Goswami, they're trying to gently, compassionately shake us. Get that, not just to be frustrated, but get that to get urgent to become a Vaikuntha man or a Vaikuntha woman, someone dedicated to Vaikuntha life. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah. This is a theme right there in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Mam upetya tukantaya tugalayama shashvatam not nuvanti mahatmana samsatim paramam gata. Says this is, it's a temporary place full of miseries. And a wise person will not will not support self or others to increase that addiction to material pleasures. Brahma, yeah, but what if I get a nicer house? What if I get that piece of land? What if I improve my situation? And so what if I become a demigod? Now, Brahma bhuvanaloka punar vartinarjana mamupechitakanteya punarjama abhidyate. Krishna says, even in the planet of Brahma, right, from the highest to the lowest, hellish situation, heavenly situation, it's all in the context of disease, birth, death, old age, disease. So Prabhupada's urging us, get attracted to the Vaikuntha program. And that's what we see in intensity here with Lord Brahma here and as the verse goes on. And so it is a common saying, if you know him, you'll love him, like that. So that the original of that's Krishna. Krishna, it's described in Bhagavad Gita. Yomam evam asamudo janati purushottamam sasarva vitbhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. Krishna says, one who knows me is to be understood as the knower of everything. And such a realized soul naturally engages in devotion, in devotional service. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate ti matva bhajante mam buddha bhavas samanvita. Similarly, Krishna says, one who understands, one who knows my power, my existential position as the source of all spiritual material worlds and energies, naturally engages in my devotional service. So that's emphasized here in the purport. And one who knows the Supreme knows everything else. This is the version of all the Vedas. Vedescha saver, aham eva vedu, vedantikrit veda vedeva chaham. And this is so important because in the name of Vedas and yoga, there's so much going on that's not the authorized siddhanta, not the authorized conclusion. So Bhagavad Gita, which is the summary given to us by Srila Vyasadeva, the summary and essence of the Vedas, the goal of all Vedas, the goal of all yoga processes is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Vyasadeva himself, the compiler of the Vedas. And it's kind of like a straightforward point. Oh, but some say this, but some say that. Okay, just like if we're looking at a painting, we can try to analyze it. I think this, I think that. And then the painter says, well, here's my intention with the painting. So the writer isn't exactly the correct term, because it's not like the Vedas were written like a modern book, but Srila Vyasadeva revealed the eternal Vedas. And after he gave all the Vedas, Ayurveda and Dhanurveda, the Veda of medicine and military art and Upanishads, and he gave all the Vedas. And then he was not satisfied, even he was despondent. And then he had these famous talks with his spiritual master, Narada Muni. Narada Muni came along and said, yeah, you look despondent. You just produced this epic literary creation, all the Vedas. Why are you despondent? And Vyasadeva said, you don't need to ask me. You're a naturally intuitive, empathic, spiritual master. You don't need to ask me. You know what's going on. And Narada Muni said, yes, you are correct. Yes, I do. That, you gave all these Vedas with Tadvad Visargo Janataga Viplavo Prati Yasmin Pratishlaka Yadbhadavat Yuti Namanyanantasya Yashon Kitanya Shrivanti Ganti Grinanti Sarva. But you're not satisfied because all of the Vedas, they're like pilgrimage places for crows. People in this age of Kali, they're not going to get it. They're going to miss the point. So you need to give them the fully 100% swan-like literature. And as a result, Vyasadeva, just like Lord Brahma, it's very similar. Lord Brahma is going into a trance. He's going internal, so he can go upwards. Vyasadeva went internal, but he went into a trance of bhakti. Bhakti yogena manasi, samyak panite male, apasya, pusham purna. He got a glimpse of the full, complete personality of God. Maya, chatat, apashraya. He went to a trance of bhakti and he saw the absolute truth. His vision was not void. His vision was not undifferentiated oneness. His vision was Sri Krishna. And on the back of Sri Maya, chatat, apashraya, on the back of Sri Krishna is his energy, Maya. And so Vyasadeva's realization is that Krishna is the goal of all the Vedas. And so Brahma, he's about to go into profound austerity. Profound, and we know that, okay, like if we're indulging our senses and mind and ego, we know we become dull-minded, right? If we're not if we're not on that growth edge of austerity. This is an important point, in my opinion. It's this, because sometimes there's philosophies like, well, to really be spiritual, do what you feel. If you want to really be spiritual, it means you do what you feel, you don't repress, you don't. Okay, so one point is, who is this you? I should do what I feel. And I am my tongue, I am my genitals, I am my belly. Who is this you that should do what we feel? This is one important point. Yeah. So we understand hinos minyata dehe kom aram yoganam jara tatate hantara praptir dirastatra namuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. So we're not the hardware, we're not the software, we're that irreducible quantum of consciousness that animates the body. Okay, so as far as identifying who is this I should do what I feel. Okay, and then sure, and so in other species of life, plants, animals, there's no question of voluntary austerity. Just like I feel like eating, time to eat. I feel like sex, go for it. That's what they do, and there's no problem with that if you're in the body of a tiger, a cat, a dog, a plant. In the body of a human, though, it's kind of degrading, right? So human life, well, Lord Rishabhadev describes he talks to his sons, headed by Maharaj Bharat. Nayam deho deha bhajan miloke kastan arhan kastan arhan vid pujamye tapu divyam puchaki nasatvam sudyadyasman brahma sokyam tvanantam. That he says that human life is meant for voluntarily doing austerity. And that's we say, just like our nature is to serve. We're not going to get away from service. Our nature is to be happy. We're going to try to be happy. Our nature is to seek knowledge. We're not going to get away from that. We might seek it in the stock market report, the sports page. We might seek it in Srimad Bhagavatam. We're going to seek knowledge. We're going to seek happiness. We're going to seek eternity, because that's our nature, to be eternally full of bliss and knowledge, to serve. And we're going to do austerity. No choice. It's just distinctively human. Whether we want to get a college degree means I'm going to forego some immediate gratification for some longer term, what I believe will be longer term fulfillment. Yesterday, Gajendra, he mentioned, like, okay, we could do like Hiranyakashipu. He did amazing austerities. His goal of austerity was to increase his addiction to material pleasures. Okay. So we're going to do austerity, whether it's working a job, whether it's studying to get a degree, whether it's to, trying to make a relationship work, we're going to do some austerity. So the question is, what's the goal of all austerity? And Rishabhadev emphasizes to make the goal of austerity Vaikuntha, Divya, transcendental austerity. To make austerity means giving up something immediate for enduring. So here, Brahma, he's going, as we're going to read as the chapter goes, he's going to go deep. Because when we give up some immediate pleasure for longer term fulfillment, we get potency. We get potency, right? It's like the path of, it is said, if we're only willing to do what's easy, life will be hard. If we're ready to do what's hard, life will be easy. So like, okay, the easy thing is sleep till 9 a.m. Or no, I could do better than that. I'm going to sleep till noon. I know people who sleep till their day starts around 2 or 3 p.m. on an early day. I'm not joking, right? Okay, so but then I know for myself, like, okay, like if I'm, and I was always a night person. So it was an austerity for me, this like 4 a.m. Oh my God. Okay, so so if I sleep really late, that's easy. And then the whole day is hard. The whole day is hard. And if I'm willing to do what's hard, get up 3 a.m., 4 a.m., read Bhagavatam, chant rounds, morning program, Bhagavatam discussion. It's some austerity at the beginning, but then the day starts and then the day flows. The day is easy. We can apply that not just to sleeping, to any area, to any area. Eating, sleeping, sex life, financial management, like that. So to give up immediate gratifications in a way that's balanced, that we're not complacent, and neither are we doing so much austerity that's artificial that we become hard-hearted, right? We can see Brahma in his austerity. He became so soft-hearted that the Lord in the heart revealed himself in his abode, right? So we don't want to become dull-minded through sensory indulgence. Neither do we want to become hard-hearted through artificial austerity that's not filled with the soft-heartedness of bhakti. And so we get potency through giving up immediate gratification for longer-term pleasure, for longer-term fulfillment. So to direct that propensity to get that gain, to get that bliss that will never be destroyed by time, that's spiritual intelligence, that's spiritual knowledge. And so Prabhupada ends the purport: to seek knowledge on the strength of one's personal attainment is a sheer waste of time. And Prabhupada references, purporting on the verse, Bhakti mam abhijanati yavanyashtasmi tatvita tatoham tatvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. He says, Krishna says, one can know me, the goal of all the Vedas, one can know me only through devotional service. And so all other paths, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, Hatha Yoga, they're meant to come to that devotional service. And this is universal. If we look at the essence of what Jesus taught, the essence of what Muhammad taught, even the essence of what Buddha taught, if we get into it, in the Old Testament, the Maha Mantra of the Old Testament in Hebrew, V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavcha b'kol nafshcha b'kol modecha. Love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. So this is bhakti. It's not sectarian, and it makes sense because the Supreme certainly has energies, and the Supreme Absolute is personal. So just like if we want to get to know a person in this world, the way, if I try to analyze you in some sort of aloof, distant way, I might, understand something about you. But if I really want to get to know you intimately, the way is to not take you into my laboratory and try to control you and study you. If I want to really get to know you, I gain your love and trust. And then you choose to reveal yourself to me. And so that's the process for knowing this. That's the process for getting to know persons with some evolved consciousness. Gain their love and trust through service. And then they confidentially reveal themselves to me. So we have that we have the epitome of that here in this chapter, with Krishna being so pleased with Brahma's sincerity to do service, working like everything depends on him, praying like everything depends on Krishna. That Krishna is going to reveal not just how to manage and create the universe, not just that, but also Krishna is going to reveal himself personally. He's revealing himself personally there. So, okay, so this is text 5 of chapter 9, canto 2, Srimad Bhagavatam. Sa'adi Devo Jagatam Paro Guru Svadishnamastaya Sisrikshaya Ikshata Tam Nadya Gachadrisham Atra Samatam Prapanchan Nirmanavitir Yaya Bhavet. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat. And while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. Hare Krishna, thank you for your presence, attention, and association. I welcome at this time if anyone would like to ask any questions or share any comments, realizations, or inspirations. Ramachandra.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Good morning.
Hare Krishna.
Hearing you speaking about working hard diligently for like the ultimate goal, waking up early, chanting my rounds, and reading. Something that comes to my mind and heart is like dedicating myself to that, and now experiencing that my like working diligently towards that sort of the desire and like the action decreases over time, and simultaneously noticing that I put aside so many things which are like more like the temporary gain or the regular material gain. I'm like, I was always complacent about them, like getting money and establishing myself materially, arranging my apartment. And I feel like there is like a big gap in my life with that. And I'm wondering, how is it that I was able to dedicate myself to like a large, all-inclusive, like ultimate goal very seriously 7-8 years ago, and now it's like hard for me to find the desire, or I'm like, I feel complacent about like, earning money and things like that. And just wondering, what is your perspective on that?
Hi, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I'm hearing, Ramachandra, that you you experienced like 7-8 years ago, you were giving yourself fully to the transcendental goal. And okay, now you're not quite sure what the balance is, that you feel in a sense less clarity and inspiration to give yourself fully the transcendental goal, and you can see that you were neglecting other things like finances and having your apartment in order. So that's what I hear you're sort of pondering, looking at your own life.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, was it a spiritual bypass, or is it still to a certain degree like a spiritual bypass? Like, oh, I'm giving myself to, I wake up early in the morning, so the rest of the things will just arrange themselves.
Yeah, I heard once a quote from a Christian priest, and he said, he was talking, goes, yeah, here in the priesthood, he goes, yeah, we would, he was talking about like the monks and the nuns. He goes, yeah, we spend, he said, we spent the first 25 years trying to be saints. Now we're spending the next 25 years trying to be human beings. Okay. Or as it is said, the path to sainthood goes through adulthood. And so, that's a quote by M. Scott Peck, the path to sainthood goes through adulthood, in his book, The Road Less Traveled. So, I mean, my impressions, we know each other a little bit for a few years. My impressions is that those years when you were giving fully, it was real and true and beneficial. I would encourage you to have no regrets. And maybe there was some spiritual bypass there. And I'm not just pointing the finger. I can look at my years when, I went through that phase. Like both, it's not this or that. Maybe there was some spiritual bypass and you gave yourself to the eternal objective. And now, I get that you in co-creation with Super Soul, you in co-creation with Prabhupada and Krishna, you're being called to advance. You're being called to advance in the process. And the advancement might look like, that, at least externally, you might be less engaged in the sadhana and the eternal objective, and taking care of very human dharmic things, and to do that responsibly without spiritual bypass and without getting unduly entangled in the drama of the human things, that requires internal maturity and advancement. And that's what you're being called to do. That's kind of my thoughts here.
Thank you. Like I appreciate you highlighting the like my ability, taking what I experienced in the 7-8 years, not to get into the drama with the material entanglement, but it doesn't mean that I neglect getting into the entanglement.
Yeah. You get to practice being like the lotus, which so in one sense it's a higher level of challenge than in your brahmachari full-time temple days. It doesn't mean it's a step down. It could be a step down. It could also be a step up, depending how you respond to this challenge.
Thank you. Appreciate your response, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Ramachandra.
I was thinking of your question, Ramachandra, and I was thinking like, okay, at the same time, how to maintain one's body and mind and family and all that without endeavoring for material gain. Because, it's like spiritual life, it's not about endeavoring for material gain. And I think like part of what Lord Brahma is showing here is that he was quite capable to do the creation. And it seems that he even knew his service of creation. But it seems that he didn't engage in it for material gain. So in order to not engage in it for material gain, then he did the austerity of devotional service. It's not clear what devotional service means in that situation. It seems he just sat and meditated. But, devotional service to prepare himself to do his service and to do creative work and to work very hard and to do that in the service of the Lord, not for material gain and like that. So I think there is some distinction there. And I found it very interesting that Lord Brahma knew his service, knew that he was supposed to create, and still didn't start that until he knew Krishna, until he found the source of himself, and then found Krishna and received from Krishna the knowledge.
Thanks for that, Melanie. Thanks for that. Yes, yeah. Brahma kind of knew what his service was. And I think that's a great lesson for me and for all of us. But, oh, I know this service. I know this service, but like, how much are we pausing to connect with Krishna, connect with Super Soul, connect with the actual purpose, serving Prabhupada's mission, whether it's washing the dishes or leading a class or creating a universe. How much, because if we're not connected there, it means we're doing service, but it's in Rajas or Tamas, and then really not much service is done. We might even be doing more harm than good. And that connection, Brahma's going to Sattva more than that. He's going to Shuddha Sattva. Thanks for that point, Malini.
Yeah, it seems that even to maintain oneself, like maybe also like for Ramachandra, you did establish the years of sacrifice, those 7 years of sacrifice, to bring you to a platform of doing your service, of maintaining a Kriya, for example, if that's what you feel called to upon, and to do that in the same way, like, yeah, I know what's my service to maintain the Kriya, and I do that sacrifice for Krishna, not because I feel the burden of material gain, because the burden of material gain is not that motivated for a devotee.
Thanks for that, Malini. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions?
I just have one short one.
Yes, Laura.
I think you mentioned this, but you said live as a Vaikuntha. I'm understanding Vaikuntha is a spiritual sky.
Yeah.
But what did that mean? I think you did answer it, but just what did you mean? Like, what does that mean, living as a Vaikuntha?
Okay. Yes. So Vaikuntha means place without anxieties. Mm-hmm. Material life means anxieties. To whatever extent we're misidentifying the spiritual self with the temporary body, it means we will experience anxieties. Dvayam dvitiya binivesha tasyat. Okay. So Vaikuntha, I'll describe. It's a geography. It's actually, as described in this purport, it's actually a planetary system. And again, you can tell I'm really looking forward to go on in this chapter. There's beautiful descriptions of Vaikuntha. Also another 15th chapter of 3rd canto. Yes. And it's a geography, and ultimately it's a consciousness. So we can be in Vaikuntha even within this body if we're engaged in Bhakti Yoga, if we're engaged in devotional service. Then we're living in Vaikuntha even while in this body. Because, and this is like a wonderful thing about devotional service. Savai pumsam parodharmo yato bhakti radoksaje ahaitukya pratyataya yatma suprasidati. That the ultimate dharma, the ultimate responsibility for all humanity, and we don't want to do spiritual bypass, still we want to at least philosophically understand our ultimate responsibility is to engage in devotional service to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And such service is completely satisfying when it's unmotivated and uninterrupted. So when we're clear, all I want is this bhakti, then nothing material can get in the way. No pandemic, no financial situation, no earthquake. Because this devotional service, it's a transcendental process. It's not dependent on anything material. So when we get my actual happiness and bliss and peace and security is in doing bhakti yoga, and I can do that no matter what, then we're free from anxiety. Yeah, well, what if someone insults you? What if this terrible, terrible calamity happens? Well, then I get to do bhakti yoga, and it might take different forms. So that's Vaikuntha consciousness. That's Vaikuntha consciousness, completely free, liberated from anxiety, because I'm not in the illusion that any external doing or having will be the source or cause of my peace and security.
Yeah, external goal is always the same.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Hare Krishna.
Ladini Shakti.
So I have a question. How do we engage in bhakti yoga like in all situations? Like I mean like a normal daily life. Like let's say right now I'm cleaning the house and I'm listening to, so that's good. I feel like peaceful. But then I will not listen to anything, which is not practical for me to listen something all the time. And then what? Like today morning, I was reading and I felt like so peaceful. It was nice. And then I started to do some daily things and I was all disturbed. And now I am listening to you and I feel peaceful. And then, so like, what's the practical service for like a normal daily activities?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ladini Shakti. Because like Srila Prabhupada, he gave us some structures, and then that makes it relatively easy. Structures like this morning program, although I understand for you it's the middle of the afternoon, but the principle is there. Oh, okay, Bhagavatam discussion, 16 rounds per day. Okay, chanting Jaya Radha Madhava. Let me read Prabhupada's books an hour a day. So Prabhupada gave us some basic structures. And then on the foundation of those structures, we're encouraged to take responsibility to be engaged 24 hours per day in Krishna consciousness. And that requires intention, because the material energy, especially in this age, this material energy is very powerfully designed to distract us. So it requires intention, like we see from Brahma. It requires intention. And then I'm not such like in a mystical way intention, but through intention, then we get realization, we get revelation, maybe not in a big epiphany, but more and more as months, years, and decades go on, of how to engage closer and closer to 24 hours per day. It could be whatever we're doing. We're involved with all sorts of administrative headaches or whatever we're doing. We can, of course, be chanting Hare Krishna, if not out loud, in our mind. We could be going through Bhagavatam or Brahma Samhita or Bhagavad Gita verses that we learned as we're falling asleep. I mean, so like Prabhupada gave us basic structures, and Prabhupada recommends to be responsible to come to create our own structures, to come to 24 hours per day. And I'm just hearing your expression, Ladini Shakti. I have a client who she had really no practice in bhakti yoga beforehand, but now she does her work at home. And just recently, yesterday, she sent me a snapshot or something. And because I sent her some links. So she's listened Bhagavatam, and she's on the 5th chapter of the 1st canto. She said, here's what I listened to so far, because she's like 4 or 5 hours per day, and she doesn't know what Bhagavatam is, but she's listening to it. So in doing her work, she's engaged in devotional service. So yeah, it means it requires sincerity. Well, it requires sincerity to follow, to whatever extent, the structures that Prabhupada gave us, and then to build on that sincerity that, and I don't want to do a spiritual bypass and in the name of spiritual life neglect my responsibilities in this world. And I want to integrate my responsibilities in this world more and more in this process of bhakti yoga, and Krishna will reciprocate. Krishna and Prabhupada, they'll reciprocate with that intention. They'll give us realizations. They'll give us stretches to go in that direction. And I know you're aware, things like, okay, of course, in the pandemic, things might be adjusted as far as in-person programs, but yeah, okay, once, twice a month, let me organize a program. Let me create a reading group, and then whatever we're doing, even if it's apparently not directly connected, let me arrange for distributing prasadam. Let me be chanting Hare Krishna or verses from chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. These are some thoughts I have in relation to what you shared.
Yes, well, thanks. I don't know if it helps, but yes, I guess it's about the trust it's about trust. Like you share that, like Srila Prabhupada and Krishna will like help us with that if we sincerely desire it.
Yeah, that's a key here. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam kriti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. As I know you know that verse. Yeah, so Krishna says if we're sincere, he gives us the intelligence of how to fill our time more and more with bhakti.
What verse is that?
Jai.
10:10 Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 10. Thank you, Ladini Shakti.
May I say one more thing?
Yes.
Like you spoke about the like how Krishna, like it's only like we can only get to know Krishna through devotional service. And recently I met a person on Harinam. I go on Harinam with the amplifier and I just dance and it's singing for me, which is fun. And like sometimes people join to sing, not sing, dance, or also speak. And this person was like sharing his realization to me. Like he was really interested in his life for self-realization, and he did so many things, even like chanted japa, like he chanted Hare Krishna 20 years ago. Like he tried all sorts of things to have some like self-realization. And then he smoked ganjis, and he was doing it with the intention like for a revelations. And he was sharing these revelations with me that he got from smoking ganjis. and I was like quite like astonished how much he got, like his understanding of his spirit soul and Brahma Gyoti and like different things like this he was like getting. But like there is like absolute zero about like Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. And when I was leaving this meeting with this person, I was really thinking like Krishna can give like any kinds of realization, but if it's like about himself personally, then without devotional service, it's just not going to come. So that was my practically seeing this principle with this person from the street.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm moved by that sharing, by that anecdote that you just had on the street very recently. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, Krishna super soul can work through ganja or LSD, and they can do that. And then that does, so let me smoke this and swallow that for spiritualization. Of course, Krishna is unlimited, and if we want to advance in Krishna consciousness, okay, then Krishna through Srila Prabhupada somehow or other will give us, okay, now if you really want to get to know me, you can give up all those crutches, all that external stuff. Follow these regulative principles. Thanks for sharing that. To get to know Krishna personally, yeah, there was nothing there about that sort of realization. Thank you, Ladini.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Gajendra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, good morning. Listening, I have some energy. I feel inspired to try to remember something that I heard elsewhere that I'm only partially remembering. And I'm wondering maybe if you've heard it before and you can help me. It's something that was said about kind of like having an intense greed in relation to wanting to perform service or know Krishna? Or does that idea of greed in relation to actual devotional service prompt anything that you know?
Yes, completely. It's completely. Yeah, just like, okay, if we want to go to Los Angeles, there's a price for the ticket. And if we want to go to India, we can get a passport, there's a price. So Prabhupada quotes Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami clearly says that, yeah, so the price to get to Vaikuntha, Lolyam, thank you, Malini, Lolyam, yeah. Lolyam means greed. So the price of the ticket to get to Goloka Vrindavan is just intense greed to get there, which is, it's wonderful that Rupa Goswami uses that language. Well, greed is material, and anger, lust, envy, but they're spiritual greed, that like, yeah, I have spiritual greed to get to Vaikuntha planets, the place free from anxiety. That's the price of the ticket. Rupa Goswami says very clearly, and Prabhupada quotes him a lot in that regard.
Thanks for helping with that. I just, somehow it was coming up to me listening to that. It was early.
Thank you, Gajendra. Hare Krishna.
Just want to share from yesterday's purport. It said, regular reading or hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is also performance of Bhakti Yoga, and one can attain the highest perfection simply by association of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I was thinking of that client of yours who's listening to the Bhagavatam. She have direct association with Bhagavatam, so unknowingly she's doing so much devotional service that Krishna really could reveal himself to her, even though she may not have enough knowledge to have the greed to know him.
Right. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, she's associating with Bhagavatam and the ripened fruit of all Vedic knowledge, and that's for her. And it's very exciting for me because it's very fresh for her, because she could listen to, she could go and find this thing, this yoga, that yoga, but okay, so she's listening to Bhagavatam now, and so she's awakening to that greed. And it's the same for us. Just like I feel more of that greed than I did an hour ago, because we're absorbed in Bhagavatam. I feel something's missing in my day. If apart from morning program, if I don't take at least some time, 15 minutes or more, to read Bhagavatam or some Prabhupada's books, because I know apart from the content and the philosophy, which is always so beautifully enriching, but I'm associating with personalities reading any of Prabhupada's books who are filled with that greed for Goloka Vrindavan, and so it's contagious.
It reminds me of something in a 8th chapter of Madhya Lila, where I think it's Ramananda who said to Lord Chaitanya, I'm paraphrasing something, but there is only one kind of unhappiness. And that one kind of unhappiness is not being engaged in devotional service. There is no other unhappiness. That's the only one, and that's the only one we can really feel, because maybe we cannot feel greed to know Krishna, but we can feel the pain and unhappiness to not have that greed.
Thanks for that. And that becomes spiritual pain. That becomes spiritual pain. Yeah. And that's avaranatmika shakti. It's a function of Maya to make us think we're content and happy without devotional service, in forgetfulness of who we are. Jivara Supahori Krishnera Nityadas. Forgetfulness of who we are as spirit souls, eternal servants of Krishna, and thinking we're happy in settling for the type of gratifications that are available to the stool eaters, as Lord Rishabhadev says.
Yeah, either to think that we are happy, or even to think that we are unhappy. And that the cause of our unhappiness is the material energy. Because there is only one cause of unhappiness, is being separated from Krishna and in forgetfulness of Krishna. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Melanie. Parampara Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I was wondering about spiritual greed, having greed for, getting bhakti, prema, like that. So, usually with greed, like the mundane greed, or maybe I'm thinking more of lust, but it's like greedy's like, I want it. I don't want others to have it because I want it.
Okay.
Or there's some element about that with mundane greed is like, I want it, and so if others have it and I don't have it, I need them to have less. I need to take it from them. I need to keep it all for myself. I'm not going to give it because I just need to keep it for myself. That's why I think of greed. So how does that translate like to the pure form? That kind of concept of like me against them or against others, like that.
Thanks for that, Parampara. Yeah, so the material greed, it's the shadow, it's scarcity consciousness, it's toxic, it's at best, it's win-lose, might be lose-lose, like that. So it's scarcity, like I'll push you down, like that. And then the spiritual greed, because like we have our conception of material greed, so it might be difficult to apply, in that term. But just like Prabhupada, Rupa Goswami described, like, okay, like we can speak of the gopis' lust for Krishna, but it's love. It's the material lust is like iron, spiritual love, prema is like gold. So spiritual greed, it's completely abundant and win-win. In fact, if I'm deepening my spiritual greed, my lalyam, then it means I'm deepening my inspiration and my joyful desire to share bhakti yoga with you, because like, oh yeah, I went back to Vaikuntha. That's what I want. I don't want any more material bodies. Okay, so what's the process here? Let me serve Prabhupada. Let me spread this mission. Let me share this transcendental knowledge. Let me give you the opportunity, like that. So like, yeah, let me remove the material envy and lust and greed from my heart. And so spiritual greed moves us to share abundantly with no selfishness. Thank you, Parampara.
So it's like it's a greedy to get. Maybe one way to see it is like I'm greedy to get, Krishna consciousness, to be Krishna conscious, to get to, to have Vaikuntha, and then like, it's just inherent in the process of that is to share it with others. So even if I'm maybe self-centered thinking of myself, it's like, well, I need to share it with others to really, get the, the bhakti, like that.
Yeah, Prabhupada encourages that sort of selfishness, if we want to call it that. He encourages that sort of self-centered. It's greed for more service. The Vaikuntha program is devotional service. So, okay, I just spent 7 hours sleeping. Okay, let me reduce that. Like, I don't want to waste. Let me reduce that to 6.5 hours. Let me reduce that. Oh, I'm greedy for more service. I just overate, so I'm dull-minded. I'm greedy to learn more verses. I'm greedy to participate in more Bhagavatam discussions. Greedy for more service. And more service intrinsically means just like, yeah, I'm not trying to prevent others from doing service. Service means service to Prabhupada. How do I serve him? I engage others in bhakti yoga. Service to Krishna, service to Srimati Radharani. How do I please them? I use my heart, my intelligence, my wisdom. I use whatever I have to bring others to Krishna, and I'm greedy for more of that consciousness.
Thank you. Also, I just wanted to share that you're speaking about Vaikuntha and Vaikuntha being a consciousness, in addition to a geography. And I think I've shared this before, but I really appreciate that you emphasize that. And I think my impression is that I don't hear it so much emphasized in other arenas, or even maybe Prabhupada gives it, but at the same time, I appreciate that you emphasize it because it really gives an entry point. It really brings the science into it of that you don't have to believe in life after, you don't have to believe in eternality, necessarily. It's just like, and that's helpful for me because I have, I can start to hear, go back to Godhead the same way as, die and go to heaven. And it's kind of just like interchangeable to me, and my filter and my atheism, conditioning is just kind of like, I just reject that, or I kind of discard that kind of notion of just like, oh, just wait till things will be better when you go back to Godhead. Things will be better when you go to heaven, that kind of thing. But it kind of just removes all of that. And it's just like, okay, right now you're having anxiety. And there's a process to, reach a consciousness that is not anxiety.
Yes.
And it's like a transcendental spiritual thing. And so it's a doorway to get to the geography. Because I wouldn't really be able to go to the geography of like, okay, go back to Godhead. That's really, it's not accessible for me. But then, okay, so there's a consciousness that exists that is spiritual, that is no anxiety. So then it can help me to say, okay, so if there's a consciousness, then I can accept that there could be a geography. So it's just, I really appreciate that. It makes it very scientific, and just wanted to give that feedback, perhaps. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I appreciate your sharing, Parampara. Yeah, because this Bhakti Yoga, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's not a theology or philosophy of be good now and then you go to heaven. It's kind of simplistic. That it's like the journey is the goal. We can say the goal is Goloka Vrindavan, the goal is Vaikuntha, but as you said, even if someone doesn't believe that, I have doubts about that. Okay, whatever. But by engaging in Bhakti Yoga, just as we're doing right now, by engaging in Bhakti Yoga, that is the goal. That is Vaikuntha consciousness. And so, Christians or Jews might use the term heaven, but that heavenly consciousness, of course, in the Vedas, we make that distinction between heaven and Vaikuntha and Goloka. So that Vaikuntha consciousness, it's available right now. And that's why because there is so much misconception or discouragement, like, yeah, be good now, go to heaven. And like kind of churches use that to get people to tithe to the church or to not think. And so we don't want to perpetuate that sort of thing. And so we emphasize, in line with the Bhagavatam, we get to cultivate, we get to experience Vaikuntha consciousness now. And then the journey is the goal. Thank you. Okay, I thank you all for your association. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you.